What happened inside this ordinary home would not only terrify, but would send chills across the entire world. It was supposed to be just another quiet night in a small house in Enfield, England. Nothing about the Hodgson family seemed unusual. A single mother, Peggy, raising her 4 children the best she could in a cramped 2-story home. But what started there in the summer of 1977 would go on to become one of the most famous hauntings in the world, inspiring books, documentaries, and even The Conjuring 2. The story begins when the children first complained about strange noises in their shared bedroom. At first, it was simple things: knocks on the walls, creaks in the floorboards. Peggy brushed it off as their imagination. Kids hear things, right? But the noises grew louder, clearer, knocks that came in sets of 3. A sound like furniture dragging across the floor when no one was upstairs. One night, one of the daughters, Janet, woke up to find her bed shaking. Not a gentle tremble, but violent jerks, as if unseen hands were lifting and dropping it. Her sister Margaret screamed when she saw the dresser slide across the room by itself. The girls ran crying to their mother, who stormed in ready to scold them. But then Peggy saw it too. The dresser was moving on its own, inching forward like something was pushing it. When she tried to shove it back against the wall, she felt a force pushing against her, stronger than anything she could explain. That was the moment Peggy knew something was deeply wrong with the house. The family called the police, hoping maybe someone could explain. An officer showed up skeptical, expecting kids making up stories. But when he entered the house, he froze. He swore he saw a chair slide across the kitchen floor on its own. Slowly, deliberately. The officer later admitted he couldn't explain it. He left, saying it wasn't a matter for the police. From there, things escalated. Objects flew across rooms. Lego bricks and marbles shot through the air, hot to the touch when picked up. Cold drafts swept through even when the windows were closed. The children's toys, the very things meant to comfort them, became weapons hurled by invisible hands. But the worst of it centered around 11-year-old Janet. Neighbors began to hear her screams through the walls. She claimed she felt hands grabbing her, pulling her out of bed, dragging her across the floor. One night, Peggy rushed in to see her daughter pinned against the wall, her feet dangling inches above the ground, and then came the voice. It started as growls, low and guttural, coming from Janet's throat. Doctors who examined her said it wasn't possible for a child her age to produce such a sound. Soon, the growls formed words. The voice identified itself as Bill, a man who had supposedly died in the house years earlier. He spoke through Janet in a tone that didn't belong to her, a deep, rasping snarl that sometimes went on for hours, leaving her throat untouched, with no signs of strain. Word spread fast. Neighbors gathered outside the house, curious and terrified. The media got involved. Soon, paranormal investigators arrived. Among them were Maurice Gross and Guy Lyon Playfair from the Society for Psychical Research. They documented over 2,000 incidents inside that house: levitations, strange noises, sudden temperature drops, and Janet speaking in that inhuman voice. They even recorded tapes of the voice. On them, Janet can be heard laughing, cursing, even singing in this terrifying growl. At one point, the voice claimed it was Bill Wilkins, a man who had lived and died in the house. Strangely enough, records later confirmed that a man by that name had indeed died in a chair in that very house years before. Skeptics, of course, dismissed it all as a hoax. They said the kids were acting out, playing pranks. They pointed to photos of Janet seemingly levitating in her bedroom, suggesting she was just jumping from her bed. They accused the investigators of being too gullible, too eager to believe. But then there were the witnesses. Neighbors swore they saw furniture flying through the air. Journalists claimed typewriters moved on their own in front of them. Even skeptics admitted they couldn't explain everything. Because if it was just a prank, why would it go on for nearly 2 years? Why would it torment the family relentlessly day and night with no end in sight? Janet herself later admitted that some incidents were faked, silly pranks pulled by kids desperate for attention, but she insisted the majority of it was real. And the fear in her eyes, even years later when she retold the story, was impossible to ignore. One of the most chilling moments came when Janet was discovered in a neighbor's home, still asleep, with no memory of how she got there. Witnesses said they saw her levitate from her bed, drifting across the room before falling to the floor. Another time, investigators claimed to see her bent backwards, her body twisted unnaturally, speaking in that demonic voice that mocked everyone present. The case grew so notorious that it caught the attention of paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, the same couple portrayed in the Conjuring films. They visited briefly, warning that the case was far more dangerous than anyone realized. According to Lorraine, the evil in that house was not just a restless spirit, but something darker, something demonic. For the Hodgson family, the hauntings slowly faded after 2 years, but the scars never left. Janet grew up insisting that while not everything was supernatural, much of it truly happened. She claimed she never wanted the attention, never wanted to be known as the girl from the Enfield haunting. She described the entity as if it had taken something from her childhood she could never get back. Even now, decades later, the debate continues. Was it real? Was it children playing tricks? Or was it something inhuman latching onto a vulnerable family, feeding on their fear, using a child as its vessel? What we know for certain is that dozens of people witnessed the events. Investigators recorded hours of evidence, and somewhere on those tapes, you can still hear Janet's voice change into something that doesn't sound human. You can hear her laugh in that low, chilling growl and say words no 11-year-old girl should ever say. And maybe that's why the Enfield Poltergeist still haunts us today. Because whether you believe it was real or not, the story lingers like a shadow at the back of your mind. You imagine being in that house, hearing the knocks in the dark, seeing your furniture move by itself, and listening to a child speak in a voice that doesn't belong to her. And then you realize the scariest part of all isn't whether it really happened in Enfield. It's the possibility that it could happen anywhere, even in your own home.